Why you wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Untold history secrets. Hello guys, today we will know about the high plains of the frontier, the quiet settling of the dust, and the long, weary hours of those who lived in the small wooden towns of the late 19th century. This narration is here to help you relax, to let the heavy weight of the modern world drift away into the dry, still air of the past. There is a quiet mystery in the way these people lived, a slow, steady rhythm that beat beneath the vast, open sky. Listen closely, but let your eyes grow heavy as we travel back to a small cattle town on the edge of the territory. It is 1878, and the sun is just beginning to sink below the flat horizon. The air is thin and carries the scent of sagebrush. It is a dry, parched air that settles in the back of the throat. The town is silent, save for the occasional creak of a swinging sign. The only movement is the slow, rhythmic drifting of dust across the wide main street. It settles into the ruts of wagon wheels. It covers the wooden boardwalks in a fine, tan powder. The world is waiting, and in that waiting, there is a deep, monotonous peace. The buildings are simple structures of unpainted pine and rough-cut stone. They stand like lonely sentinels against the emptiness of the prairie. Inside, there are no luxuries, no comforts beyond the basic necessities of shelter. There is the smell of sawdust, the smell of old grease, and the smell of the dry earth that finds its way through every crack in the walls. It is a hard life, a slow life, a life measured by the length of the shadows. Morning in the frontier town does not come with a roar. It comes with a pale, gray light that stretches across the floorboards. The people wake slowly, their bones aching from the cold that seeps up through the ground. The first task of the day is to light the small iron stove. It sits in the corner of the one-room house, a cold, heavy object waiting for the warmth of a few scraps of wood or dried buffalo chips. A woman moves quietly, her long skirts brushing against the rough floor. She adds a few shavings of wood, then a small piece of coal, until a tiny orange glow appears through the iron grate. The air in the room is stale and cold. It takes a long time for the heat to spread. The children stir beneath their heavy wool blankets. They do not want to leave the warmth, but the day is waiting, and there is much work to be done. The morning meal is a simple affair. It is the same meal they had yesterday, and the same meal they will have tomorrow. A bowl of thick cornmeal mush, perhaps a piece of salted pork if the supplies are holding out. They drink coffee that is black and bitter, made from beans that have been ground by hand in a small wooden mill. There is no milk. There is no sugar. There is only the warmth of the liquid in the gut. They eat in silence, listening to the wind rattle the thin window pane. There is no rush. Out here, time is a vast, empty thing. It stretches out like the prairie itself. There is a deep patience in every movement, a slow, deliberate way of being. The children help clear the wooden bowls. They use a small amount of water from the bucket, water that was hauled from the well at the end of the street. Every drop is precious. The streets of the town are wide and dusty. There are no cobbles here, only the hard-packed earth that turns to thick, clinging mud when the rare rains fall. In the early morning, the fog lingers in the low spots, a thin, ghostly veil that muffles the sound of the first horses. The lampposts are few and far between. They are simple wooden poles with glass lanterns that must be filled with kerosene every evening. The houses are small and cramped. Many are built of sod, layers of prairie grass and earth piled high to keep out the wind. Inside, the walls are dark and damp. The ceiling is often covered with a piece of cloth to catch the dirt that falls from the roof. It is a close, heavy atmosphere, a burrow against the vastness of the outside world. People live together in these small spaces, sharing the air, sharing the silence. The clothing of the ordinary people is plain and worn. It is made of heavy denim, coarse wool, and stiff calico. The colors are muted, browns, grays, and faded blues that match the colors of the earth and sky. There are no fashions here, only utility. A man's coat is heavy and stained with the grease of his trade. A woman's apron is patched and mended until the original fabric is lost. Work begins as the sun clears the horizon. For the shopkeeper, it means sweeping the dust from the boardwalk. Swish, swish, swish. A rhythmic sound that marks the start of the day. He opens the heavy wooden shutters of the general store, letting in the pale light. Inside, the shelves are stocked with the basics: sacks of flour, barrels of salt, rolls of heavy fabric, and jars of horseshoe nails. The air in the store is cool and smells of leather and dried tobacco. It is a quiet place, a place where men come to lean against the counter and speak in low, monotonous tones. They talk of the weather, the price of cattle, the slow progress of the railroad. They do not speak of dreams. They speak of the reality of the soil, the reality of the wind. In the blacksmith's shop, the fire is already roaring. The bellows creak. A steady, rhythmic puff of air that makes the coals glow a fierce, angry red. The blacksmith is a man of heavy shadows and bright sparks. He works with iron, shaping it into shoes for the horses, hoops for the wagon wheels, and hinges for the doors. The ring of his hammer on the anvil is a clear, lonely sound. Clink, clank, clink, clank. It is a sound that carries far out into the emptiness, a signal that the town is alive. The children often watch from the doorway, their faces smudged with soot. They do not play. They observe. They learn the weight of the hammer, the heat of the forge. They learn that life is something that must be forged with effort and patience. The transport in the town is slow and heavy. There are wagons pulled by teams of weary oxen, their wooden wheels groaning under the weight of timber or stone. There are light buggies pulled by nervous horses, their hooves making a sharp, rhythmic tapping on the hard ground. The movement is slow. It takes hours to move a few miles, takes days to reach the next settlement. The horses are the lifeblood of the town. They are tied to the hitching rails, their heads hanging low, their tails flicking at the flies. They are dusty and tired, their coats matted with sweat. The men who ride them are just as dusty, just as tired. They move with a slow, rolling gait, their spurs jingling softly with every step. Jingle, jingle, jingle. It is the music of the frontier. Children in the town do not attend grand schools. They go to a small sod building or a wooden shack, a place with a single teacher and a few wooden benches. They learn to read from the Bible or an old newspaper. They learn to cipher on small slate boards with pieces of chalk. The scratching of the chalk is a thin, dry sound, a sound of small minds trying to grasp a large world, but most of their time is spent in labor. They haul water. They gather wood. They tend to the small gardens behind the houses. They help their mothers with the heavy task of washing clothes, a task that involves boiling water in large iron pots and scrubbing the fabric on wooden boards. The rhythm of the scrubbing is a steady, weary pulse. Rub, scrub, rub, scrub. Midday brings no relief from the monotony. The sun sits high and white in the sky, baking the earth. The town becomes still. The people retreat into the shadows of the porches. They sit in wooden chairs, their hats pulled low over their eyes. They watch the heat waves shimmer over the distant hills. It is a time of waiting, a time of endurance. The midday meal is often cold. A piece of leftover bread, a hunk of dry cheese, a handful of dried fruit. They eat slowly, chewing the tough fibers, their bodies moving with the efficiency of machines. They do not talk much. The heat is too heavy for words. The silence of the prairie is too deep to be broken by small talk. As the afternoon wanes, the work continues. The street laborer moves slowly along the ruts, filling them with shovelfuls of dirt. His back is bent. His movements are steady. He does not look up. He looks at the ground, at the task before him. He is a part of the landscape, a slow-moving figure in a world of brown and gold. In the small houses, the women begin the evening chores. They knead the dough for the morning's bread, their hands moving in a rhythmic, kneading motion. Press, fold, press, fold. It is a soothing movement, a movement that has been done for centuries. The flour dusts their arms. The smell of the rising yeast fills the small room. The evening is a time of softening shadows. The sun sinks lower, turning the dust in the air into a golden haze. The light is long and amber. It touches the tops of the buildings. It glows in the windows. It is a beautiful light, but it is a fading light. It signals the return of the cold, the return of the dark. The town begins to draw inward. The shops close their doors. The blacksmith banks his fire. The wagons are unhitched and the horses are led to the stable. The sound of the town changes. The sharp, clear noises of the day are replaced by the soft, muffled sounds of the evening, the rustle of hay, the low murmur of voices, the distant howl of a coyote. Inside the houses, the kerosene lamps are lit. The flame is small and yellow. It casts long, dancing shadows against the walls. The room feels smaller, more intimate. The family gathers around the table for the final meal of the day. It is a warm meal, a stew of beans and salt pork, a pot of coffee. The steam rises into the rafters. They eat by the light of the lamp, their faces half hidden in the shadows. They talk of the small things, the health of a horse, the arrival of a letter, the repair of a fence. These are the things that matter. These are the things that hold the world together. The children listen, their eyes growing heavy in the warmth of the room. The evening routine is a quiet ritual. The washing of the bowls, the sweeping of the hearth, the locking of the door. The bolt slides into place with a satisfying thud, thump. The world outside is barred. The wilderness is kept at bay. Inside, there is safety. There is warmth. There is the familiar smell of the family. One by one, they prepare for sleep. They remove their heavy boots, their worn coats. They wash their faces with a small amount of cold water. They climb into their beds. The straw mattresses rustle as they settle. The wool blankets are pulled up to their chins. The cold is beginning to creep back into the room, but for now, they are warm. The lamp is turned down low. The flame flickers, then goes out. The room is plunged into a deep, velvety darkness. The only light comes from the red embers of the stove, a soft, pulsing glow that fades slowly. The silence of the night is absolute. It is a silence that carries the weight of the entire continent. The wind sighs around the corners of the house. A lonely, mournful sound. It tells of the hundreds of miles of empty grass, the frozen mountains, the dry deserts. It is a sound that has no end. It is the voice of the frontier. The people in the house do not hear it. They are asleep. Their breathing is slow and steady, a rhythmic counterpoint to the wind. They sleep the sleep of the exhausted, a deep, dreamless sleep that restores the body for the labors of the next day. They do not worry about the future. They do not dwell on the past. They live in the present, in the moment of the breath, in the warmth of the blanket. They are the ordinary people, the quiet settlers, the survivors. The night watchman walks his rounds. He carries a small lantern that casts a tiny circle of light on the dusty street. His boots make a soft, muffled sound on the earth. Thud, thud, thud. He checks the doors. He watches the horizon. He is the guardian of the silence. He is the only one awake in a world of shadows. The moon rises, a cold, white disk that turns the town into a silver ghost. The shadows are long and sharp. The prairie stretches out in every direction, a vast, frozen sea of grass. The world is still. The history of the frontier is being written in the sleep of its people, in the quiet endurance of their lives. As the hours of the night move slowly forward, the cold deepens. The frost begins to form on the window panes, delicate patterns of ice that look like the ferns of a frozen forest. The stove grows cold. The embers turn to ash. The house becomes a shell, a protection against the biting air. The people stir in their sleep, pulling the blankets tighter, shifting their weight on the straw, but they do not wake. They are held in the embrace of the night, a night that is as long and as deep as the history of the land itself. There is no rush for the morning. The morning will come when it is ready. In the distance, a train whistle blows, a thin, lonely sound that carries for miles. It is the sound of the future, the sound of change, but for the people in the small town, it is just another sound of the night, a sound that fades into the wind, a sound that does not break their rest. The town is a collection of small, dark, silent shapes. It is a place where life is lived at the most basic level, where every day is a struggle and every night is a victory. It is a place of hard work, simple food, and deep, quiet peace. The dust has settled. The wind has softened. The stars are bright and cold. The world is at rest, and the ordinary people of the frontier are safe in their dreams. They are home. They are warm. They are together. The day has ended, and the narration fades, like the light of a kerosene lamp, slowly, gently, into the darkness. The history of the West is not a story of thunder. It is a story of the quiet, the steady, and the slow. The hooves have stopped. The hammers are still. The streets are empty, and the night is long. Rest now, like the settlers in their sod houses. Let the cold stay outside. Let the warmth fill your spirit. The prairie is wide, but you are safe. You are warm. You are home. The stars will watch over you. The earth will hold you, and the morning will come when it is ready. But for now, there is only the quiet, the darkness, and the sleep. The journey through the dust is over. The paths are covered. The fire is resting, and you may rest too, slowly, gently, into the deep, silent peace of the frontier. The shadows have stretched as far as they can go. The moon has reached its peak, and the world is held in a state of grace, a moment of perfect stillness. The past and the future are gone. There is only the present, the soft weight of the blankets, the warmth of the breath, the slow, rhythmic pulse of the night. The wind is a whisper, the earth is a bed, and the history is a lullaby. Sleep, sleep, into the long, quiet night. Untold history for sleep. Why you wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Continued. In the soft, fading light of the frontier, we leave the small wooden town behind, and we travel further into the vast, golden silence of the high plains, where the grass grows tall and the sky feels heavy with the weight of ancient time. Here, we find a small prairie farm, a lonely island of labor in a sea of waving grain. It is the time of the harvest, a season of slow, steady work under a sun that lingers long into the evening. The air on the farm is different than in the town. It is thick with the scent of dry straw, crushed clover, and the sweet, earthy smell of the soil being turned. The house is a simple structure, built of heavy sod and timber. Its walls are thick and cool, providing a sanctuary from the relentless heat of the harvest sun. Inside, the shadows are deep, and the air is still, carrying the faint hum of a stray bee or the soft rustle of a mouse in the rafters. Morning on the farm begins before the light has even touched the horizon. A pale, silvery glow begins to thin the darkness of the east, and the rooster's call is a lonely, rhythmic cry that echoes across the flat land. The farmer wakes with a slow, heavy sigh. His body is stiff from the previous day's labor. But there is no time for lingering. The harvest will not wait. And the weather is a fickle master. He dresses in the dim light, pulling on heavy denim trousers that are stiff with the dust of the fields. His shirt is, of course, unbleached linen, worn thin at the elbows and stained with the salt of his own sweat. He moves quietly, his boots making a soft, hollow sound on the packed earth floor. He steps outside into the cool, damp air of the pre-dawn, where the dew sits heavy on the grass, turning the world into a field of diamonds. The first task of the morning is the care of the animals. The horses stand in the small corral, their heads low, their breath rising in soft white clouds. The farmer moves among them with a gentle touch, his hands checking their legs, their hooves, their eyes. He speaks to them in a low, monotonous murmur, a language of trust and companionship. He feeds them a measure of grain, a small reward for the heavy work they will do. The children are awake now too, their small faces pale in the early light. They carry wooden buckets to the well. The creak of the windlass is a rhythmic, groaning sound that breaks the morning silence. Creak, groan, creak, groan. It is a sound they have heard every day of their lives, a sound that means the water is coming, fresh and cold from the deep heart of the earth. They carry the water to the kitchen, where their mother has already started the morning fire. The iron stove is beginning to crackle, a small, comforting noise in the quiet house. She prepares a meal of heavy biscuits and thick gravy, fuel for the long hours ahead. They eat in the gray light, their shadows cast long across the table. There is a sense of purpose in their silence, a collective understanding of the work to be done. As the sun rises, a great, orange orb climbing slowly into the sky, the harvest begins. The farmer hitches the horses to the reaper, a heavy machine of iron and wood. The blades are sharp and silver, reflecting the light like a mirror. He sits high on the wooden seat, his hands firm on the reins, and the horses begin to move. A slow, steady, forward pull. The sound of the harvest is a rhythmic, clattering song. The blades move back and forth, snip, 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 cutting the tall stalks of wheat and laying them in neat, golden rows. The horses' hooves thud against the earth, a deep, muffled drumbeat. The dust begins to rise, a fine, golden powder that coats everything in its path. It gets into the eyes, the nose, the clothes, but the work does not stop. The children follow behind the reaper. Their task is to gather the cut wheat into bundles. They use lengths of twine to tie the stalks together, their small hands moving with a rhythmic, twisting motion. Twist, tie, drop, twist, tie, drop. It is a back-breaking task, but they do it without complaint. They move through the field like small, busy insects, their sunbonnets and hats providing the only shade in the open heat. The sun climbs higher, and the heat becomes a physical weight. It presses down on the shoulders. It makes the air shimmer and dance. The world becomes a blur of gold and blue. The only constant is the rhythm of the work, the steady, monotonous movement of the horses, the repetitive clicking of the reaper, the quiet, patient labor of the children. Midday brings a brief respite. They gather in the shade of the wagon, their bodies leaning against the large wooden wheels. The mother has brought out a jug of cool water, wrapped in a damp cloth to keep the heat away. They drink deeply, the water feeling like life itself as it cools the throat. They eat a simple meal of cold meat and bread. sitting in the dust, their eyes fixed on the horizon. They do not speak of the heat. They do not speak of the tiredness. They simply exist in the moment, watching a hawk circle slowly in the high, thin air. The world feels vast and empty, a place where man is small and the land is great. There is a peace in this realization, a quiet humility that comes from working the soil. The silence of the midday is deep and heavy, a time for the spirit to rest while the body recovers. The afternoon is a long, slow crawl toward the evening. The shadows begin to stretch out once more, turning the golden wheat into a field of amber. The work continues, bundle after bundle, row after row. The farmer's face is etched with the lines of the sun. His eyes are narrowed against the glare. He is a part of the machine, a part of the land, a part of the cycle of growth and decay. The mother spends her afternoon in the small garden, weeding the rows of beans and potatoes. Her hands are dark with the earth, her fingers moving with a slow, deliberate grace. She picks the insects from the leaves. She carries water to the thirsty plants. She is the guardian of the family's winter stores. Every plant she tends is a promise of survival. Every weed she pulls is a victory against the wilderness. As the sun begins to sink, a great, red fire on the edge of the world, the harvest slows. The reaper is brought to a halt. The horses are unhitched, their coats dark with sweat and dust. They are led back to the corral, their steps slow and weary. The children follow, their arms aching, their faces sunburnt, but their hearts are light, for the day's work is done. The evening on the farm is a time of quiet beauty. The sky turns to a deep, bruised purple, and the first stars begin to appear, like tiny, silver sparks in the velvet dark. The air cools rapidly, the heat of the day radiating back into space. A soft, cool breeze begins to blow across the plains, carrying the scent of the cooling earth. They gather in the house for the final meal. The lamp is lit, casting a soft, golden glow across the room. They eat a hearty stew of vegetables and salt pork, the warmth of the food spreading through their tired limbs. They talk in low, monotonous voices, their words few and simple. They speak of the number of bundles gathered, the health of the horses, the clarity of the sky. The evening routine is a slow, steady ritual. The cleaning of the tools, the feeding of the chickens, the checking of the well. The children are the first to sleep, their bodies sinking into the straw mattresses with a grateful sigh. They are asleep before the lamp is even turned down. They're breathing a soft, rhythmic hum in the quiet room. The farmer and his wife sit for a moment by the stove. The fire has burned down to a few glowing embers. They do not speak. They simply sit in the shared silence, a silence that is filled with the memories of the day, the weight of the labor, and the satisfaction of a task completed. They are the ordinary people of the plains, the quiet builders of a new world. One by one, they prepare for rest. The lamp is extinguished, and the darkness settles over the farm. The only sound is the distant, lonely howl of a wolf or the soft rustle of the wind in the standing wheat. The world is at peace. The harvest is safe, and the family is together. The night watch is kept by the stars. They look down with cold, unblinking eyes on the small sod house. The moon rises, a silver sliver that casts long, pale shadows across the field. The bundles of wheat look like sleeping figures, waiting for the morning. The earth is still. The history of the farm is being written in the slow, steady pulse of the night. As the hours move forward, the cold deepens. The frost begins to form on the blades of the reaper, turning them white and ghost-like. The horses sleep in the corral, their heads touching, their bodies providing warmth for each other. The world is held in a state of grace, a moment of perfect stillness. The traveler in his carriage, the sailor in his hammock, the keeper in his tower, and the farmer in his sod house. They are all part of the same story, the story of the quiet, the steady, and the slow. They are the people who lived in the shadow of the past, and who now rest in the heart of the night. Rest now, like the farmer after the harvest. Let the weariness fall away. Let the silence fill your soul. The plains are wide, but you are safe. You are warm. You are home. The stars will watch over you. The earth will hold you, and the morning will come when it is ready. But for now, there is only the quiet, the darkness, and the sleep. The journey through the gold is over. The rows are cut. The fire is resting, and you may rest too, slowly, gently, into the deep, silent peace of the prairie. The shadows have reached their end. The moon has found its path, and the world is asleep. Untold history for sleep. Why you wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. The winter trapper. In the deep, velvet hush of the winter night, we leave the golden plains and the harvested fields behind, and we climb, slowly, steadily, into the high, jagged peaks of the frozen mountains. Here, the air is thin and sharp. It tastes of pine needles and ancient ice, and the world is draped in a heavy, white silence that stretches for 1,000 miles. It is the heart of the 19th century, and we find a small, lonely cabin tucked into a narrow valley beside a frozen stream. This is the world of the mountain trapper. A world where time is measured only by the height of the snow and the slow movement of the stars. This narration is here to help you relax, to let your mind drift away like a single snowflake falling through the dark. There is a profound peace in this isolation, a stillness so deep that you can hear the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Listen softly. Let the cold remain outside while you settle into the warmth of your covers. The cabin is a small, sturdy box of rough-hewn cedar logs. Its roof is weighted down by several feet of dry, powdery snow, which acts as a thick, insulating blanket against the biting wind. Inside, the space is no larger than a few paces in any direction. The walls are lined with the furs of the season, beaver, fox, and the thick, silver pelt of a mountain wolf. They hang in the shadows, soft and silent. In the center of the room, the hearth is a small circle of stones. A slow, steady fire of dry pine and mountain mahogany burns there. The wood crackles with a soft, rhythmic pop, pop, and the sap smells sweet and sharp. A woman or a man living here moves with great deliberation. There is no room for haste in the winter. Every movement is calculated to preserve heat, to preserve life, to maintain the quiet order of the shelter. Morning in the high mountains is not marked by light, but by a subtle shift from charcoal gray to a pale, misty blue. The trapper stirs beneath a mountain of firs, feeling the weight of the pelts pressing down with a comforting heaviness. The air inside is freezing, save for the small radius around the dying embers. The first task is the most important: to reach out into the cold and breathe life back into the fire. A few dry shavings of cedar, a small branch, then a larger log. The flame licks upward, casting long, dancing shadows across the log walls. The trapper waits, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching the fire grow. There is a deep patience in this waiting, a recognition that the morning begins only when the fire says so. The water in the iron kettle is frozen solid. It must be melted slowly over the heat. The morning meal is a solitary, silent affair. A piece of dried venison, pounded thin and chewed slowly. A cup of hot water steeped with the needles of the white pine. It is a bitter drink, but it carries the medicine of the forest. The trapper eats while looking out the single small window, where the frost has climbed the glass in intricate, silver lace. The world outside is a white void, a place of beautiful, deadly stillness. To survive a day here, one must understand the rhythm of the cold. The trapper prepares to check the line. He dresses in layers of heavy wool and buckskin. His boots are lined with dried grass for insulation. He wraps a long scarf around his face, leaving only his eyes exposed to the biting air. He picks up his rifle, a heavy, cold piece of iron and wood, and steps out into the snow. The transition from the cabin to the outside is a shock to the lungs. The air is so cold it feels like a physical weight. But there is no wind today, only the silence. The trapper moves on snowshoes, a slow, rhythmic shush, 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 as the wooden frames glide over the surface of the drifts. He leaves a long, lonely trail behind him, a signature on a blank white page. He follows the frozen stream, where the ice is thick and blue. He looks for the signs of life that others would miss. A series of tiny tracks, a broken twig, a disturbance in the crust of the snow. He works with his hands in the freezing air, resetting the steel traps beneath the ice. His fingers grow numb, but he does not hurry. Haste leads to mistakes, and mistakes in the mountains are silent and permanent. The work is monotonous and repetitive. Move, kneel, check, reset, move again. He is a quiet observer of the wilderness. He does not fight the winter. He moves within it. He knows that he is a guest in this high white cathedral. The sun, a pale, distant disk, offers no warmth. It only serves to highlight the vastness of the peaks that surround him. By midday, the trapper finds a sheltered spot beneath a stand of ancient firs. He clears away a patch of snow and sits on a fallen log. He does not build a fire. He simply sits, his breath coming in slow, steady clouds. He listens to the silence. It is not empty. It is full of the groaning of the ice, the soft thump of snow falling from a heavy branch, the distant, lonely croak of a raven. He returns to the cabin as the blue shadows begin to stretch across the valley. The walk back is harder, his legs are heavy, his breath is shallow, but the sight of the small cabin, with its thin wisp of smoke rising straight into the air, is the greatest comfort he knows. It is the promise of safety, the promise of another night won from the cold. Inside, the cabin is still warm. The fire has held its heart. He sheds his frozen layers, hanging the wet wool near the heat. He watches the steam rise from the fabric, a ghostly mist that fills the room. He prepares the evening meal, a stew of beans and fat. The smell is rich and heavy. It fills the small space with a sense of abundance. The evening is a time for the small tasks of the craft. He sits by the fire, a sharp knife in his hand, working the pelts. His movements are rhythmic and sure. The scrape of the blade against the hide is a dry, repetitive sound. Scuff, scuff, scuff. He is preparing the wealth of the winter, the furs that will be traded for flour, lead, and salt when the passes open in the spring. As the night deepens, the mountain settles into a deeper cold. The logs of the cabin groan and pop as the wood shrinks in the freezing air. It is a sound like a distant gunshot, but the trapper does not stir. He is used to the voices of the house. He banks the fire, stacking the logs so they will burn slowly through the long, dark hours. He climbs back into the bed of furs. The weight of the blankets is a physical relief. He closes his eyes, and the world of the mountain disappears. There is only the warmth, the slow, steady beat of his own heart, and the silence of the snow. He is the ordinary man of the high peaks, a quiet survivor in a world of ice. The fire glows red. The shadows are still, and the mountain sleeps beneath its white mantle. The history of the winter is written in the tracks of the snow and the silence of the cabin. Rest now, like the trapper in his cedar walls. Let the cold remain a world away. Let the stillness be your blanket. The peaks are high, but you are safe. You are warm. You are home. The stars will watch over the valley. The mountain will hold the wind, and the spring will come in its own time. But for now, there is only the quiet, the darkness, and the sleep. The journey through the ice is over. The traps are set. The fire is resting, and you may rest too, slowly, gently, into the deep, silent peace of the mountains. The stars are unblinking. The moon is a silver scythe, and the world is held in a state of perfect, frozen grace.